Halo Reach, Bungie's final venture into the Halo series before they passed the torch on to 343. Ugh.
Do you not like it?
But ignoring the studio that hasn't even produced one good game, let's take a look at Reach. This was meant to be the swan song title, incorporating the best of everything that had come before. But did it? First, let's take a look at the campaign story, and then we'll move on to the game mechanics. So we begin with a flash forward, showing us the ruin that the planet Reach will become. Admittedly, I expected more glass from a glassing of a planet, but whatever. This brings anyone not aware of the lore up to speed. Reach was humanity's biggest planet after Earth, so its fall was kind of a big deal.
Basically, kind of a big deal.
We can also fully customize our campaign Spartan now. That's something I've wanted to do ever since I played my bootleg copy of the Halo CE demo, where I wondered why changing my armor color didn't change Chief's armor. I chose to make my Noble 6 a female, just to change things up from Arbiter and the Chief, and since Noble Team only has one other female. But we're given precious little info on who Noble 6 is supposed to be. Carter mentions her being a lone wolf before this, but that's all you get. So we have this new Spartan from somewhere joining Noble Team who has lost their previous Noble 6. I always wondered what happened to the other Spartans, and why we never saw any in the original trilogy. Our introduction to them is incredibly brief, however. We walk by June, who says nothing, and then see Mr. Edgelord himself, Emil. What was with 2010 and having skulls on everything? That's also not how you sharpen a knife. Then Kat bars Noble 6's way, only to let her by after saying a single word. Carter gives you the monumental introduction of half a paragraph on who these characters are, and that's about how much the game cares about them. But we'll get to that as it becomes relevant. Our first mission is to investigate what Colonel Holland believes to be the work of insurrectionists. The first level gives us a very good impression on what the rest of the game is going to be like. You're dropped off in Falcons, but June doesn't join you, staying in the Falcon instead. Noble Team never fights with all 6 members in this game. Not even once.
Not even once.
There's the huge deal of them being Noble Team, but you never have all of the others with you. They're plastered all over the box art, but fighting alongside all of them at once like a team never happens. After Emil attempts to jump to his death, Noble Team discovers a distress beacon near the remains of a warthog. Emil seems to suspect that this explosion might be the result of plasma damage, implying that the Covenant may be here, but only George acknowledges this and denies it.
Why are we not seeing explosives residue?
Noble 3, can you confirm any EX residue in the area?
Negative, sir.
Plasma, maybe.
Can't be. Not on Reach.
There's a lot of blood on the ground.
The team then finds civilians hiding in a house, and Emil spazzes out at the sight of them like a rabid dog.
On your knees, now! They're not rebels, they're farmers.
George translates from them that apparently something in the fields killed the farmer's son, but again, Carter has no reaction to this. A bit robotic, huh? June then reports that there are heat signatures in the next structure, and how does he not know what he's looking at? You encounter Covenant units and vehicles in the next area, which he should have been able to see from his Falcon. Worst marksman of all time. After dealing with this new threat, so much for having new insurrectionist enemies, the group are then panicked at the Covenant being on Reach. I use that term loosely because the delivery of these lines has all the emotion of an intoxicated slug. How much were the voice actors paid? Were the voice actors paid?
Stand down, Noble, stand down. Contacts neutralized.
Contacts? It's the damn Covenant.
Cheer up. His old valley just turned into a free fire zone.
Reach is the second biggest planet of humanity. You might want to be a little bit more alarmed than that, you inebriated penguin. We then fight a trio of Ultra Elites who are using plasma repeaters. I distinctly remember reading in a Bungie weekly update stating that this was supposed to be designed for multiplayer, and in my surprise, I actually swore while my dad was in the next room. This was back in 2010, when I was still living at my parents' place, but thankfully my outburst went undetected. Kat and Emil are then extracted by Falcon, leaving only Carter and George to accompany the player. After clearing a few areas, you'll save a group of 3 troopers, who also don't seem particularly bothered that the Covenant's on Reach. Apathy abounds, it seems.
Boss, we're picking up a distress signal.
Mayday, 3 Charlie 6. Does anyone read? We were attacked by Covenant forces. The Covenant is on Reach. I repeat, the Covenant is on Reach.
Troopers.
Let's move, 6. We gotta find the source of that distress call.
No disrespect, but don't we have more important things to do than round up strays?
We don't leave people behind. You see those troopers, you let me know.
After saving them, the 3 Spartans will then be taken by Falcon to where Kat and Emil are trying to enter a comm outpost, where, once again, you'll have to stay put and wait for the game to allow you to proceed. Moments like this were few and far between in the original trilogy, but it's comprising most of this level.
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay?
But upon making it inside, we find the body of a man, and a chip just falls out of his collar. Why was it there? Kat then snatches it because she's become aware of her own incompetence and is enraged by it. Even stranger, a number of elites then just fall from the ceiling, making off with a wounded trooper who Noble Team makes no effort to assist.
Help! Help now! Help me! Ah! I feel dead!
Your weapons will also be reset after this cutscene, because fun is a thing not to be had here. After chasing and killing all but one of the elites, you reactivate power and end the level. We get a tiny amount of characterization for George and Emil, with the former trying to comfort a thoroughly ungrateful civilian, while Emil is dismissive of this.
Your accent sounds familiar. Chaperon?
Tangari,
Friend of yours?
father.
Sha'ainalong. I'm sorry.
Why would you be?
Big man forgets what he is sometimes.
She just lost her father. She needs a full psychiatric workup.
She's not the only one.
Lock it down, both of you. Get her on her feet. The body stays here.
Thank you, sir.
Carter then contacts Holland, and his reaction is more akin to finding out that the last few cookies have been eaten before you could nab them. What were the elites even doing here anyway?
Barely getting you. What's your situation? Over?
Colonel, this is Noble 1. There are no rebels. The Covenant are on Reach. Acknowledge?
Come again, Noble One. Did you say Covenant?
Affirmative. It's the Winter Contingency.
May God help us all.
So this level could have played out differently. What if instead of starting out in a wide open environment, you instead entered the facility at the beginning, and then were attacked by jackals instead of elites? Taking hostages and running away is much more their style as pirates than elites who are supposed to be honorable and never run from a fight. Then imagine if you had to chase down various groups of Covenant, eventually securing the data card before it could be delivered to the Jackal's elite commander. You could have many more army troopers throughout the level, as this would be the first strike of the Covenant during their invasion. The next level is Oni Sword Base. We're here because... reasons. We don't find out what makes this place significant, or why the Covenant are attacking it, until the second to last level. Right now, though, we're here because the game just put us here. Kat will accompany you throughout the vast majority of this level, but she never does anything of note. You don't get to understand who she is, and she never does anything significant in the level. She's just there. In other games, you're given a reason to care about AI companions, like the squad mates in Mass Effect, your companions in Dragon Age Origins, or Alex in Half-Life 2 and its episodes. Noble Team are just reskinned Marines. They have the same shortcomings, and almost no personality, The squad from ODST had vastly more character to them, and that game was much shorter and made by Bungie's B team. There should have been sequences that involved both Six and Kat doing things that only Spartans could do, and maybe Kat could warm up a bit to you over the course of the level. Instead, she just tags along like a small child who can run you over. After activating the anti-air gun and the comms array, you fight your way back inside the facility where there are apparently banshees attacking the roof. Emil is too dumb to be able to handle it on his own, so you have to fight your way up and handle them on your own. George is the only one who accompanies you here, as Carter, June, and Kat just want to take a lunch break, I guess.
6, head upstairs and assist Emil. George, make sure she gets there.
Depend on it.
The final cutscene depicts a pair of longsword fighters just chasing the Corvette for a bit, then breaking off while an orbital round just appears from nowhere to destroy it. George then congratulates Six on her work, and he's the only one that will display much of any emotion. Carter then radios for the pair to rendezvous with him somewhere in the base to give their report to Halsey, ignoring that Emil is also up there and should be contacted. I guess I was wrong though, because Emil has teleported there ahead of the duo. Now, someone who's only played the games isn't going to know who Halsey is, and the game never explains it either. She was the founder of the Spartan program, but the game never even gives us a single line about it. George even has a baffling line about only being Halsey's for half his life, despite the fact that he's a Spartan too, and would have been abducted during childhood.
Repeat. Sounded like you said Halsey.
I did.
Copy that, on our way. Don't need command to tell me. Been on hers half my life.
Halsey then spews some jargon about a latchkey discovery that the dead man from the previous level had discovered. But just one question. What's a latchkey discovery? Who knows? Not the game, because it doesn't explain it.
Professor Sorvad's final entry in his field notes made reference to a latchkey discovery. Latchkey. Not a word he would use lightly. Latchkey, latchkey.
She then threatens to send Kat to the brig for taking the data, but Carter stands up to her, demonstrating an inkling of a personality, but there isn't much to him.
Before you ask, I was alerted the moment you attempted to access its contents, as I am with any unauthorized tap. That data is classified Tier 1. I could send you to the brig for interfering with my work.
Maybe you'd like to join her.
I'm sorry?
We're currently under emergency planetary directive, winter contingency. I'm sure you're familiar with the punishment for civilian interference with the Spartan deployment.
Are you threatening me, Commander?
Just making a reading suggestion, ma'am.
Level 3, Nightfall. There isn't much narratively to this level, just Six and June fighting their way to a point where they can observe the Covenant staging area. This level feels like it was trying to emulate the Truth and Reconciliation from Halo 1, but while that level had the clear objective of rescuing Captain Keyes, this is just sort of wandering. You'd think that the Covenant would notice their troops going dark as Six and June loudly make their way through the level, but they don't. It's also weird that June makes this big deal of giving Six special ammo at the beginning of the level, but the sniper rifle doesn't handle any differently than it does normally. Also, what's up with the opening cinematic? The camera bobs about like a person's holding it, but Six and June are on their own. Later in the level, June plants explosives that he has on a reconnaissance mission inside a Covenant power pylon, but Kat doesn't want it detonated until the beginning of the next level, for some reason.
We got Bravo to Noble 2. Charge placed.
Somewhere inconspicuous, I hope?
Stuck it inside the pylon's power supply.
Alright, keep pushing into the dark zone. Command wants to know what the Covenant are hiding.
There's a gate to the southeast of the hydro plant.
A funny little detail, at the end of this level, there's the Covenant crate stuck in a wall, and it'll pop out if you shoot it. So this level needs some more structure. You start out with only this nebulous goal of finding out what's going on in this dark zone that the Covenant set up. That's a start. What if we had it so that there was a distraction that allowed June and Six to sneak past enemy lines? One of my biggest criticisms with Reach is that while it's what set the trilogy in motion, Chief and Arbiter aren't even referenced. What if the other members of Noble Team work in conjunction with the Chief and some other Spartans off-screen, alongside Marines and Troopers, to draw out the Covenant forces, and the player and June would need to sneak past as many as possible, observe the Dark Zone, then fight their way out. There could even be side objectives to help out the Chief and his forces, and you could overhear radio transmissions from them. Maybe you could even overhear some Covenant transmissions as you get closer to the Dark Zone? Maybe even hearing the Arbiter at some point? Now we begin level 4, Tip of the Spear. Now, Bungie went on and on about how they could have more AI at once and larger battles, and you'd think that from the opening cutscene that this would be the time to show it off. But no. We immediately break off from the main convoy to be separated with Kat once more. Her terrible driving strikes again. Our first objective is to destroy a Covenant AA gun. After doing that, you'll make your way to a mining facility. Along the way, you can hop into an enemy Wraith's turret and the elite driving it will get out, leaving you with a perfectly pristine Wraith. Very handy for not having to deal with the AI's garbage firing patterns. As you make your way through the structure, a Zealot elite randomly shows up. What he's doing here is never explained, which is strange for such a high-ranking member of the Covenant to just show up somewhere like this. After destroying a second AA gun, you'll be set on a rail shooter section and a grenade launcher falcon. Normally, I don't like these, but thankfully this is short, and blowing things up is rather fun. Unfortunately, it's not so fun if you do this in co-op, as the second falcon that players 3 and 4 will be in only has machine guns, and they'll fly in front, leading to them having a much higher chance of dying. Then George uses his tuna sandwich of a brain to tell the pilot to fly straight into the energy barrier that nobody knows what it does. This causes the Falcon to crash and the pilot and passenger to die. Good call, George.
Priority 1, pilot. Gotta know what's in there.
Affirmative, sir. Here we go.
We just lost all power. We're going down.
Look your armor, Spartan!
Brace for a hard landing.
Crew's dead. We shouldn't stay here.
Strangely, the cutscene will always show 6 on the right side launcher, even though I had been using the left. Yes, I know it's just for gameplay, but it's still odd. After making your way up the spire to deactivate the shield, George has teleported into a Falcon along with Carter, who has just ridden around all battle. Great use of a super soldier there. A frigate then shows up to destroy the spire, but for some reason it flies right up to it. A Covenant supercarrier then shows up to blow up the frigate in turn. But seriously, the frigate was flying into the ground anyway. The game portrays this as a surprise, but what did the UNSC think was going to happen? That the Covenant wasn't going to show up with more ships? They want to exterminate you, geniuses. But how could we fix this? Well, this should take place amidst a massive vehicle battle. Think of the level the Ark in Halo 3, but more. Have the player drive a Warthog instead of Kat, maybe with Emil on the gun, as he hasn't gotten much attention at this point. Throw in some Scarabs instead of the lousy AA cannons, and now we're talking. Let the Spartan AI perform better than the Trooper's AI. Have Emil on the gun, and have him go crazy with the Rocket Hog. Have his character develop a respect for Six, and let the player get to appreciate him via fighting alongside him. Have the Zealot be the field commander of this battle, and have him potentially be commanding it from a Phantom, letting him see the battle lines from the sky. Have Emil and Six shoot him down, where he crashes inside the Spire's barrier. Then have the crash. Have the player drive off a cliff, like Dutch did in ODST, to make it inside the barrier. Kat could even have been riding shotgun in the Warthog for this, and maybe she could stay behind to fix the hog, while Six and Emil go up the spire to deactivate the shield. But what else was Reach missing? Well, to be a swan song of Halo, how can you not have a Warthog run? As Six and Emil make their way back down, Kat can then present the Warthog to the player, and they can embark on a short Warthog run to escape the blast zone of an orbital strike. Then you can have the supercarrier blast the frigate, which should be much higher up than it is in the base game. Now the player can get a connection to June from the previous level, Kat from the level before that, and Emil in this one. The next level begins, and this intro is quite confusing. Noble Team is laying low in a cave somewhere. Why they're here and what they were doing, we never find out. It looks like there should have been a level between this one and the last one, because George has a scorch mark on his arm and is carrying a case of what I can only assume are round meals. Kat then comes up with the idea to bring a slipspace engine on board the supercarrier, and for some reason she wants to borrow Emil's kukri, only to damage it by sticking it into the rock. The voices in my head are screaming. It's also stated here that Six was trained as a pilot for saber fighters that are for some reason classified. It's a fighter. Why is it classified? I thought Six was supposed to be a lone wolf, not a space combatant. Seems like a waste of a super soldier to keep them off the front lines. But Holland approves of this, and Noble Team, minus Emil and June for some reason, are deployed to this launch facility. That's totally secret for these preposterous space fighters.
Preposterous rumor?
Also, the Covenant are attacking it. For some reason. How did they find it? Do they know what's here? How would they have found out about that? Anyway, Six and George take off in a Saber, leaving Kat and Carter to be supposedly picked up in another Falcon. The following space section just drags on for ages. Yes, I know that it's subjective, but there just wasn't any need to make it this long. The space battle was so hyped up, but it's really no different from piloting a Banshee, just on a bigger and faster scale. For some reason, all the Sabers regroup at an orbital station that has its defenses down. Why? Eventually, George yeets himself out of Six's fighter to join the Pelican carrying the slipspace drive. For no apparent reason. The Sabers and the frigate Savannah then proceed to engage a Covenant corvette, damaging its engines and jamming its communications. Six and the other Saber pilots then land on top of the corvette and make their way inside, eventually letting George in with the slipspace drive. George then stays behind to guard the drive while Six and the Marines make their way to navigation, which is absurdly close to the hangar. After fighting their way back and clearing out the enemies, George then discovers that the slipspace drive will need to be activated manually, and stays behind to do it. He gives Six his dog tags, and then throws her out of the airlock. Thankfully, Six has a magic re-entry pack on her back that somehow allows you to survive a free fall into a planet's atmosphere. George doesn't possess one of these for unknown reasons. While the plan goes off without a hitch, unfortunately, more of the Covenant's armada arrives just after George destroys the supercarrier. The game makes this look like it's a surprise, but again, what were you expecting? The Covenant are trying to exterminate humanity. Any human-controlled planet they find, they glass with overwhelming force. Did you seriously think that more ships weren't going to show up sooner or later?
Space rupture detected.
Yeah, we're picking up anomalies too. Are you reading it? Multiple Covenant signatures. Does anyone have them? They're everywhere. Incapsulating the whole damn Covenant fleet.
So how would this level be fixed? Well, firstly, remove the bit about the Sabers being classified. It makes no sense and serves no purpose to the story. Then it would make more sense for the Covenant to be attacking it, since its information wouldn't be as difficult to discover. It would then make more sense for 6 to be trained to use the saber, as it would be a standard model that Spartans could be trained to use. The facility's interior could also be extended, and have Covenant that the player would need to fight through to reach the saber, so that the tedious space section could be shortened. The saber doesn't need a passenger, so have George accompany the Pelican to begin with. Then when the Pelican lands, have the Marines stay behind to guard the drive, and George would accompany the player. Extend the distance between the hangar and navigation, and have George be able to actually kill things. That would let the player appreciate him more. Then when the pair activate the Corvette's refueling run with the supercarrier and fight their way back, have it so that George and 6 set the timer for the slipspace drive, and then steal a Seraph fighter from another nearby hangar. But Dual-Wielder, then George wouldn't die. Correct. That will come later. See, we need the player to be invested in the rest of Noble Team, because their deaths in vanilla have no impact whatsoever. They mostly just exist to scream at you to go through the levels faster. Cut their lines about that, and have them be more useful to the player. This means that we'll have an attachment to them. With this version, we'll have had time to get to know Kat, June, and Emil, and now we'll work with George. There isn't too much story-wise to the next level. Exodus is mostly just fighting through city structures and clearing a path for civilians. After 6 somehow survive to fall from orbit, when a drop of a few feet will kill you during gameplay. So what if we make this more interesting by having George, who survived the last mission in my version, help fight through with us? If the pair's Seraph gets damaged, forcing a crash landing in the same place where 6 lands in the normal game, then the pair can fight together. George has shown the most compassion for the normal people, so this mission could be full of he and 6 doing heroic things to save civilians from the Covenant. Maybe even have some of the civilians be inspired and pick up weapons and act like the militia members you see in Nightfall. George could move to stand in front of the civilians, protecting them with his body, and we can see in action just how much he cares about the common people, and thus we can care more about him. Then we come to level 7, New Alexandria. 6 is dropped off on a rooftop and is greeted by Carter, who just disappears. Apparently the Covenant are jamming comms in this specific area. For some reason. This is never explained, nor is why Noble Team is here. Once again, not much story-wise happens during this level. But we do get the great detail of the Covenant beginning the glassing of the planet. I don't know why they didn't just start off with this, but oh well. After 6 clears the jammers and allows 3 nondescript pelicans to escape, Carter opts to receive a transmission from Holland, which compromises their position, resulting in Kat's death.
Got him!
For some reason, her shields are not up, and if that was a result of the glassing beam, then why didn't the zealot who killed her stick around to pick off the rest of Noble Team, who are all static targets? So how do we make this work? Well, for starters, don't have Carter warp out of existence at the start. Have him accompany 6, helping with the various firefights and providing his view on what's happening. Let the player actually get to know the leader of their team. Also, let's not kill off Kat just yet. That can come later. Believe me, I have no fondness for her. The second to last real level, the package. Holland has ordered that Sword Base, which is now heavily damaged and overrun by Covenant, be destroyed. Now to do this logically, you'd either want a small, stealthy insertion to plant charges and then detonate them, or a massive assault force to clear the place out and then destroy it at their leisure. The UNSC does precisely neither of these. They send in the remains of Noble Team and a handful of ODSTs to do the job, but their presence is almost instantly revealed via the use of a Scorpion tank and aircraft. This would alert the Covenant and cause them to swarm the team, which should have resulted in their deaths. Instead, though, they make their way into a random dead-end room where they're contacted by Halsey. A secret passage is open for them, and I have to question why Emil, the guy with the close quarters weapon, isn't taking point. That's kind of the point of having a close quarters weapon, you rotten lemming. Then, for some reason, they all just relax, despite them not knowing if there are any enemies present in this tunnel. Keep your weapons up. Do you all want to end up like Cat? Noble Team then have a back and forth with Halsey, who doesn't seem to realize that the cavern they're in is beginning to collapse, and acts as though Noble Team needs to just stop it. Even stranger, the Covenant are somehow flying phantoms down here to drop off troops to attack her bunker. Why weren't they doing this before? How are aircraft getting down here? What even is this place? It's just some random Forerunner building that's never explained or elaborated upon. It's just here because the plot demands it. After a tedious hold the line segment, the level concludes with Halsey giving Cortana to 6. When Cortana should have been with Chief, given the dialogue at the beginning of 1. 6, Carter, and Emil then take a Pelican to where the Pillar of Autumn is making ready to leave the planet, while June escorts Halsey out of the game to Castle Base, wherever that is. Also, if there was this convenient landing pad that is for some reason completely uncontested by the Covenant, why didn't we insert from here? This mission is a mess narratively. Cortana was forced in here as nostalgia bait. So firstly, we cut her, and this base had the coordinates for Installation 04 that will kickstart Halo CE when Cortana, who is with Chief, accesses them. Let's also ditch the initial assault and have Noble Team insert from this hidden landing pad. Then they make their way down to Halsey, and now the Covenant make their way down, but not with dropships. They'll enter through various points on foot, and Halsey would need various parts of the facility brought back online to finish decrypting the Forerunner code. Then 6 will have to accomplish this, while the rest of Noble Team defends the bunker. Now we can see the different reactions over the comms, no longer being dismissive of 6, and now respecting her enough to get the job done, and making use of her lone wolf background. This also lets us see how the other, now all currently alive, members of Noble Team fight together. Don't have the door to Halsey's bunker be invincible, but have it take more damage the longer 6 takes to accomplish the objectives. Then we have June escort Halsey, but to a ship, not a base on a planet that is rapidly becoming less habitable. 6 takes the data and the rest of Noble Team to the Pillar of Autumn. Also, Emil, how are you not falling off the Pelican? The final, actual level. We begin with the team's Pelican being pursued by a pair of Banshees on a Phantom. Carter is now wounded somehow. Was there supposed to be a level between this one and the last, or was he just flying with the hatch open? Pelicans have a rearward-facing turret. Why aren't you using it? So 6 and Emil then bail from the Pelican, which somehow flies over them. Physics would dictate that a Pelican you just jumped from would be in front of you, not behind. Anyway, we have a long section where Captain Keyes himself informs the two that he'll be making his way to a landing platform to receive the package.
This is Captain Keyes of the Pillar of Autumn. We are tracking you, Noble, and we've begun our launch sequence. Proceed to dry dock, platform D. I'll be on it myself to receive the package.
We'll be there, sir.
Better be, soldier, because my countdown is no abort.
This makes me question why none of his own Pelicans were deployed to ensure that this vital package makes it there instead of its carrier having to bail and then hoof it for miles to get to the pad in time. But the supply of logic has run dry. So we finally make it to the pad, losing Carter along the way, and Keyes is nowhere to be found until we fight wave after wave of enemies. So much for being there, Keyes. Emil volunteers to take control of the Mac cannon to give Keyes and 6 time to escape, one of the few instances where he shows any emotion.
What's the situation?
We rigged the mass driver up top. If we lose that, the Autumn has no covering fire. She'll never make orbit.
Noble to Keyes, we're at the pad.
Copy, Noble. My Pelican's ready. Clear an LZ, and I'll meet you there.
Will do, sir. All right, 6. This is it. I'll man the big gun. You just get to the platform and deliver that package.
But once Keyes arrives, the Covenant then take advantage of the Mac Cannon's extremely limited field of fire to drop off Zealot elites on top of him. Emil kills one, then just sort of poses on its body and gets killed for it. Worst situational awareness ever. So now 6 has to take over, and kills the remaining Zealots in the process, who are implied to have been the same Zealots that were encountered in the first level. The Pillar of Autumn then departs, with 6 buying them time, and so the level concludes. So what can we do to make this work? Well, let's start by giving Carter back his brain. Have the Pelican still being chased, but George and Emil are keeping the Banshees off with the turret and George's machine gun. But then have the Pelican run out of ammo, forcing Carter to do a flyby landing, and let 6, Emil, George, and Kat jump out, with him acting as a decoy, and also sacrificing himself later. Now that we know him, and have a connection to him, his death will actually mean something. The rest of the level can largely proceed in the same way, but have Keyes' Pelican at the pad already, and be forced to pull back by the arrival of Phantoms. Have the troopers man the cannon for the time being, and then once Keyes takes the data, have the Phantoms swarm the troopers in the Mac cannon and drive Keyes' Pelican away before the Spartans can get on board. Then 6, Kat, George, and Emil fight their way to the cannon, and once they reach it, Kat and Emil can then pick up some of the heavy weapons that are nearby that spawn in co-op, and George can use his machine gun, and they help take care of the Banshees, letting 6 focus on the Phantoms, and thus helping to make this drudgery of a sequence more bearable. The last level just involves fighting things until you die. 6 stands alone in the middle of the unexplained nowhere, and oddly there are dead Spartans around. Are these the Gauntlet Red and Echo teams that June was talking about?
Sir, that true about Gauntlet Red and Echo teams assigned to civilian evac ops?
Anyway, there's nothing here. I blew myself up because nobody kills me except me, but let's take a look at 6's last stand. 6 throws her helmet off for some reason, and for some reason the Ultra Elite firing at her can't seem to hit her, and his shields break extremely quickly, leading to his death. An Elite General then tries to sneak up on 6 instead of rushing her with his energy sword, but she breaks his shields with a single shoulder bash somehow. This high-ranking elite then drops his weapon for some reason, and then decides to take a dirt nap on his own, with 6 drawing her pistol and ending him. 6 then seems to be immune to plasma damage, as a minor and a major elite put bolt after bolt into her, while she just stands there firing her bottomless clip assault rifle and pistol, killing them both. Oh, here she can dual wield, but no, doing that in-game is just too much. An Ultra then rushes her with no weapon drawn, shoving her to the ground. Then he tries to stab her with his gauntlet dagger. She kicks him away, and he reels like a mindless goon in an action flick. A Zealot approaches, but again, his shields are almost non-existent, as 6 breaks them with a single hook. The Zealot reels like a doofus, and the Ultra does a massively telegraphed jumping stab, which 6 avoids. We can't see what happens, but the Elite's shields break, and then the Zealot stabs downwards with his gauntlet dagger, and the camera cuts to 6's discarded helmet. She is dead. The epilogue then follows, and somehow Reach is depicted as flourishing again. Not sure how that works, but okay, I guess. So, how do we spice this mission up? Let's have it so that 6, George, Kat, and Emil are attempting to hold the line so that civilians can make it to safety. The player can't just die instantly here and end the mission. As more transports take off, members of Noble Team will then be allowed to be killed by the game, and one by one, they fall, until 6 is alone, the last once again. Now we'd actually care about Noble Team, and them going down would actually matter, instead of trying desperately to be dramatic, all while it's just the passing of a piece of set dressing that would only scream at you to go through the levels faster. Now this obviously isn't the only way that the campaign could have been improved, but I tried to keep it as close to what happens in vanilla as possible while still having it make an impact. But what about The game mechanics.
We're distracting.
So firstly, the big issue is the art style change. It was cool that we got to see some more stuff for the Spartans, like where they keep their gear, but the Covenant got shredded here. The elites had armor that was too over-designed, now being bulbous and goofy instead of the sleek and nimble sets we'd seen previously.
Ew! I like them! I like goblins!
Melee attacks from elites and hunters also don't need to hit you to deal damage, and they happen far too quickly. The Grunt's design was also massacred, and to whoever decided to ramp up the frequency of which they'll rush you with plasma grenades, I hope that every traffic light you encounter is red. Seriously, why do they do this almost every time? Skirmishers just pop up here and are never seen or mentioned again, so they only exist to make a hole in the lore. Let's also make them annoyingly fast too. But there's something much worse than any of this. The armor abilities. These things just bring the pace of the game to a screeching halt. Sprint and armor lock, while behaving differently from one another, both serve the same purpose of giving the player a get-out-of-jail-free card for when they mess up. Not only that, but sprint leads to maps being stretched out so that the mid-range headshot weapons are even more prevalent than they were in previous games. In CE, it was the pistol. In 2 and 3, it was the battle rifle. And in Reach, it's the DMR. I hope you don't enjoy close quarters fights, because the game sure doesn't. And of course, there's no dual wielding. Bungie struck gold with it in Halo 2, but then they got lobotomized during Halo 3's development. In Halo 3, each weapon dealt only 75% damage and had its accuracy reduced. No. The whole point is to have increased CQB potential at the cost of grenades. But like so many fun mechanics, it was thrown away during the making of this game. And then they have the nerve to taunt me with enemies in the campaign being able to do it. Then Bungie made so many of the weapons pathetically weak. It takes forever to get a kill with anything other than the DMR or a power weapon, when it should be the opposite. Not to mention that precision weapons now deal large amounts of damage to vehicles, making them death traps. Health bars are a thing again, so I hope you don't like starting off on an even foot with your opponent. And we've also never seen fun weapons like the needle rifle or plasma launcher since this game. Or even a personal favorite of mine, the focus rifle.
Okay, but this is just divine. Exquisite.
Reach was unfortunately the beginning of the end for Halo. 343 just took all of the negatives of Reach and then made a game around that instead of fixing them. The art style change, the lackluster writing, gameplay mechanics being changed for the worse, all of it started with Reach. Reach isn't bad on its own. It has some jank to it, and it's not as good as the original trilogy and ODST, but it's not as bad as the garbage that 343 has tried to pass off. But these are just my observations. What are yours? Do you enjoy Reach, or do you prefer the trilogy? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this video entertaining or informative, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe to see more, and may all of you have a weapon in each hand.